HQ in Nashville, Tennessee, to wherever you're cheering on your Tennessee Titans. The So Bros Network presents the Unofficial Titans Podcast.
Welcome back for another Reaction Monday here on the Unofficial Titans Podcast. It's your boy, Big Natural Stoney Keeley. Mine's right, ass is tight, as we have a shitty fucking football game to talk about today. I'm going to be breaking down my thoughts on the Cleveland Browns just completely gridlocking the Tennessee Titans in Cleveland yesterday. Probably the worst game that I've seen the Titans play since that 2021 loss to the Jets. In terms of just feeling like inept and hopeless, like no matter what this team does, the Jets had an answer for him that day, much like the Browns had an answer for him that day as well. As a reminder, you can follow me on X at Stoney Keeley. Follow us collectively at Sobros Network on all major social media platforms. And hey, there's a lot of people out there that are slandering the coach better, play better mantra this morning. And I'm just saying, if you want to make a statement, make a viral video. We have coach better, play better shirts at sobrosshop.com. Go in there and buy one. I'll get it to you this week. And then you can make a viral video burning the shirt, burning the mantra. You know, people get tired of hearing it. I think it's kind of funny myself. I always took coach better, play better as a sort of fuck you to the media. Like, you guys aren't going to get the details out of me as to like what's wrong with this team and what we got to improve on. Always understood, like, Mike Vrabel's, probably going over detailed stuff in meetings that he's just not going to tell the media about. And it was kind of a smart-ass answer to questions. So what went wrong? Well, we got to coach better, got to play better. I liked it. I kind of liked it. I thought it was, it's like a shade below saying when someone asks, hey, coach, what went wrong out there? Just flat out saying, well, we didn't win. We didn't win. I don't know. I loved the energy. But now I'm like thinking about it and I'm seeing, people just in an outrage about it. And I'm kind of like, man, what if he's like really preaching this in meetings? And guys, we got to coach better, got to play better. I can imagine that probably gets tiring to hear. This game was ugly. There's no two ways about it. The Browns absolutely dominated the Titans from a complete perspective. Offense, defense, coaching. The Titans couldn't get anything going. The Titans coaches didn't have any answers for what the Browns were doing on defense or offense, for that matter. People were kind of jumping in my mentions yesterday, telling me it wasn't really Kevin Stefanski, it was Jim Schwartz that had the coaching masterclass yesterday. Y'all forget the Titans had a game against Stefanski's Browns in 2021 that they lost. That it kind of felt like, damn it, what do we have to do to beat this team? Jim Schwartz wasn't on that staff. Kevin Stefanski was. I think Kevin Stefanski is kind of an underrated coach. I don't think he's, Mike McDaniel levels of creative genius, but I think he's designed an offense that if the quarterback can not be dumb and not do dumb shit that hurts the team, can be pretty successful. And the Titans gave Deshaun Watson a get-right game yesterday. So a lot of stuff to dive into. I want to start by revisiting my keys to this game. If you are a VIP subscriber at Stacking the Inbox, stackingtheinbox.com, you got this piece on Friday. My three keys were the interior offensive line versus the Browns' defensive line, making Myles Garrett priority number one. It did not always look like Myles Garrett was priority number one. Now, to the Titans' credit, to be fair, the defensive front for the Browns, pretty fucking good, right? So, it's like at a certain point, you just have to kind of call your offense. And you can't keep paying attention to Myles Garrett because other guys are going to get after you with the pass rush anyway. You're not going to be able to run the ball. So, I felt like there was a little bit of like, fuck it, we can't do anything right. to stop this guy, so let's just try running our offense. There's a little bit of that yesterday, and I just don't think that's a key to the game that you can reasonably check off. The Titans didn't do well in that regard. Deshaun Watson turnovers, they got one yesterday, but it was ripped out of a receiver's hands by Sean Murphy Bunting, and then they couldn't capitalize on the field position to get points. So I thought they actually allowed Watson to get comfortable in this game. And early on, they were getting to him, but they couldn't finish tackles. Like, they were afraid of his legs. And deceptively shifty guy, the way he's built, like, he doesn't look like he's moving as niftily as he is. But, you play soft in the secondary, and you give away plays to these Browns receivers that, watching the first 2 weeks of the season, I didn't feel like these guys were very explosive in an unguardable one-on-one type of way. But you gave up those big plays. You couldn't sack him when you got to him. They had a few sacks, but there were a ton of sacks left on the field as well. You kind of allowed him to get into a rhythm. And once he got into a rhythm, and once Kevin Stefanski got into a rhythm calling plays in the second half, they had their foot on the throat of the Titans. And then in that second half, they just stomped down and decapitated the Titans defense is what happened. You can't check that key to the game off. And then something that I wrote about as a twofold issue was open field tackling. My exact quote on defense from that piece on Stacking the Inbox: if the Titans don't wrap up and securely tackle guys, the Browns have some dudes that can make them pay for it, and that feeds into how the Browns want to play football. Well, listen, that's exactly what happened. The Titans did not wrap up. They did not securely tackle guys in the open field. I thought it was really interesting. We'll get into this a little bit more. The way that Stefanski called plays to get guys in space to kind of test early on how the Titans defense was going to play at the perimeter with those guys. And a lot of the game, the Browns did just kind of dink and dunk, get the ball to guys in the open field and say, hey, come tackle me. And I don't think the Titans really answered the bell that well. On offense, it was the same thing. I'm saying, like, watch what the Steelers did with Jaylen Warren, and you've got guys in Derrick Henry and Tyjae Spears that can make plays in space. But the Browns, I say it, I've got it in a note later on in the podcast, but like, the linebackers were a lot faster yesterday than they looked on tape the first 2 weeks. So the linebackers were active. It was like Jim Schwartz expected the Titans to try and attack the edges like that, and they couldn't get a whole lot going. So open field tackling, I didn't see too many people mentioning that yesterday, but I just kept like banging my hands on the table, like, fucking tackle somebody. Just a complete inept performance, anemic, inept, soft performance from the Titans. They just kind of looked completely outclassed and outcoached. It's one of those games, like, you've got to me, it was bad enough that I watched it and thought, holy shit, if they don't just crumple this shit up and throw it in the trash and move on, it's gonna be problems. And the way Kevin Stefanski likes to call offense and get receivers down the field and just kind of stretching the field from sideline to sideline, making you cover guys one-on-one, kind of broadening zones for defenders to patrol, creating a little more open space. It kind of paints the next two games in a different light against the Bengals and the Colts. And the Ravens, for that matter, too. Like, I don't know. That shit's out there now. It's on tape. And offensive coordinators are probably going to be looking at this like, hey, this is how we get this defense. So, also for no reason, I wanted to mention early on that I wanted the Titans to draft Christian Gonzalez when they took Peter Skoronski. I was okay with Skoronski, but in the back of my head, I was wanting Christian Gonzalez, and you can go back and watch the replay from 440 Sports that night. And I was there. I'm like, Skoronski or Christian Gonzalez? Or Christian Gonzalez. Like, he's still there. He's looking good for the Patriots. I bring that up for no reason. At all. Let's talk about the offense. Pretty poor performance. Reminder, I still have to watch the All-22. I've watched this game twice now. I watched it live, and then I went back and watched it. I woke up early this morning and watched it. And sorry for the audio disturbance there. My fucking cat, for some reason, wanted to pull the fucking microphone off the table. Nonetheless, I got up early to rewatch the game this morning. I still have the All-22 to watch, assuming NFL Game Pass posts the All-22. They still haven't posted the All-22 from the Chargers game. It's infuriating. I mean, I don't know what I'm fucking paying for at this point, and their customer service is impossible to track down, so I might end up just like canceling my subscription and leaving a note like post the fucking Titans All-22. Anyway, if they post the All-22 this week, I'll watch it again and try to figure out some more of the stuff that was happening in the secondary and with the wide receivers, because that's the stuff that you don't really see unless you watch the All-22. So still have a ways to go, but just initial analysis here. Everyone was bad except for Chris Moore. Chris Moore may be the MVP of this team so far. I don't know. It's said slightly tongue-in-cheek, but I haven't watched the film to back it up, so I'm just floating that out there. A lot of this game on offense came down to blocking. I didn't feel like the offensive line could consistently hold up. You know, there's this clip that's going viral now where the Titans are sending two tight ends wherever Myles Garrett is going, and then eventually, like, they can't get set, and it draws a delay of game, and Jim Schwartz is just laughing his ass off. Like, he knows. He knew yesterday. There were several shots of him on the sideline just smiling. It just looking coy, like, oh, man, we got these guys right where we want them. And good for Jim Schwartz. I'm not taking anything away from him. Didn't bother me at all, because I knew, like, man, that's one of those situations where you just know you're shooting fish in a barrel. You can't help but smile a little bit, right? Like, let's not hold that against Jim Schwartz. But the Browns were loading up the left side of the line with Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and just going after Andre Dillard and Dylan Radins. And even when the Titans tried to help him out with a tight end, they didn't do it consistently. And, again, can't fathom why you wouldn't try and chip Myles Garrett on every play. They had some success when they did it, and they just didn't stick with it consistently. Don't know why. It seems like coaching malpractice on the surface. But I thought the game plan would be Myles Garrett over center and get the clear power matchup against Aaron Brewer. But it's clear that Jim Schwartz, they watched the tape and they said, our favorable matchup here is Andre Dillard. And it was, absolutely. I'm going to go back and rewatch the Chargers and the Saints again. I kind of want to do a film study on Andre Dillard and kind of see like what's been going on there. But it was clear from the jump that the Browns were going to try and stack guys at the line, at the left side of the line, and just go after Ryan Tannehill. The decisions that Tim Kelly, Mike Vrabel, whoever's in charge were making regarding the blocking, just kind of baffling. You're asking Trevin Wesco to block Myles Garrett one-on-one, kind of mind-blowing. I thought the Browns were constantly pushing the line of scrimmage back in on the Titans. They're getting nothing, and they're starting these plays behind the line of scrimmage. Like dumping it off to Derrick Henry, to Tyjae Spears, short plays in the flat to Chigakonkwo. They just couldn't get anything going once they started these plays behind the line of scrimmage, and that's where things started really playing into the hands of the Cleveland Browns. Dillard was called for holding on a play that he just can't sustain his blocks, and the Titans were clearly rattled by Myles Garrett. When they tried to help him out with the two tight ends, the Browns just stuck two more linebackers at the line of scrimmage. And I mean, it's funny. The broadcasters mentioned how Jim Schwartz is not trying to fool anybody here, and it's like, okay, you want to put extra bodies at the line? We got linebackers that can cover that, because we know we're going to get home before you can really test our coverage. And it was just, it was bad. Why would they not try to help Dillard more? I wrote that down several occasions. It wasn't just Dillard. The Browns were able to clog up running lanes along the interior. The guys other than Myles Garrett making plays, standing like brick walls there. Hubbard gives up a bad sack one-on-one with Alex Wright. And all in all, it shook Ryan Tannehill. I think we saw Ryan Tannehill closer to week 1 Ryan Tannehill than week 2. Kind of feels like that's just going to be the nature of this team this year, right? Like they're just lacking in so many departments. It's kind of going to be a roller coaster. And I joked on Twitter, and I joked to my buddy Zach Lyons, who I need to check in on him this morning and see how he's doing, because I think the game has him like mentally checked out. But this feels like a roller coaster, and it's high drama. Like we're swinging drastically from one week to the next, and you kind of just don't know what you're going to get out of this Titans team right now. The best reality show on television right now. But Tannehill, I see people, the conversation does not have to be either or. Who was worse, the offensive line or Ryan Tannehill? I know people were saying that the loss is not on Ryan Tannehill, and I agree with that. I think the loss is on everybody. But I don't think Ryan Tannehill played particularly well. He was high on a throw to the flat to DeAndre Hopkins. Just didn't look comfortable. Couldn't convert that third down. He made a couple of dangerous throws, one into 3 defenders to try and force it in there. He was a little high on a pass to Chigakonkwo that had a chance to move the chains. Forced a couple throws to Hopkins. Spears was open underneath, like the design like we've seen in weeks before, where Tim Kelly just giving his quarterback a security blanket, a sort of outlet for the check down that he just either didn't see or was just so uncomfortable that the throw was rushed. I think there was that play that he missed to Burks. I think he had adequate time in the pocket to make that throw, but it looked like he kind of got a little rattled and evacuated the pocket and threw on the run. Missed Treylon Burks. Burks still had an opportunity to catch that ball. And he's not absolved of all responsibility here, but it's just kind of like another shaky performance from Tannehill. He threw short to DeAndre Hopkins in the third quarter. Okonkwo dropped a pass, but the pass was kind of behind him. He finishes this game with a passer rating of 62.8. I don't think Ryan Tannehill was all that great. I think it was another game where we're seeing this tendency from him throughout 3 games now. Like if the protection is not there, man, he's just kind of rattled and just kind of like a step behind what's happening on the field from a processing standpoint. So I don't know, again, if that's a byproduct of learning a new offense or if it is just a case of the yips, so to speak. But I didn't think he played particularly well yesterday, and nobody, his offensive line, his pass catchers, again, aside from Chris Moore and maybe DeAndre Hopkins, nobody else was really helping him out, and that was a bummer to see. A couple of notes I jotted down. Yeah, the Browns linebackers way faster yesterday than I had seen watching the first 2 weeks. The Browns defensive backs were quick to recognize the run and swarm to the ball. The Titans did have some drops. They ended up averaging 1.7 yards per carry in this game. Not what you want to see from this offense the way it's constructed. Bad performance. And I saw some of you guys on X yesterday as I was just in the sewers, as my buddy Braden Gall would like to say. I'm in the sewers trolling the shit out of y'all, saying John Robinson wasn't the problem, Marcus Mariota wasn't the problem, the Titans should fire Mike Vrabel and hire Deion Sanders. I felt like I was on one yesterday, having a good old time. And I'm seeing some of y'all like, well, the Titans make offensive football look hard. And I agree. Like that was kind of, you see that idea floated out there, and watching the game so far, you're kind of like, yeah, they kind of do. And it's interesting. There's a conversation to be had there, because if there's no protection against a defensive front like the Browns had, it takes way too long for stuff to develop down the field. And when the game swung in favor of the Browns, the Titans started playing right into their hands. I mean, it was kind of like check and mate right off the bat for this team. That's kind of, how do you solve for that? I don't know. Again, I say this from time to time. I'm just a dickhead with a microphone. The fuck do I know about fixing schematic offensive issues in the NFL? That's a problem, though, right? And that is something to clean up and to sort out. To summarize the offensive performance, how the Browns attacked the Titans, I felt like they could basically just use their defensive tackles to neutralize the run because they weren't afraid of this offensive line at all. And then they would just send Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith after Tannehill. They'd drop their guys into coverage and eliminate options down the field. The pass rush just, at one point, the broadcasters said, coming in waves. Like, that's all it was. Like, you snap the ball, and every snap there's a fucking tidal wave. And even without Greg Newsome, the Browns were able to hold their water just long enough for that pass rush to get home. Complete inept offensive performance, and people want to kind of key in on that, but I think there were three major issues with the defense yesterday, and this was supposed to be the strength of the team. Coverage was a problem. The secondary was just not good, and I didn't think that the Titans trusted them. So I don't know if I can take my victory lap yet or not, but I felt crazy, and I talked into this microphone saying I felt crazy because going into the season, I kept saying, like, I don't know about this secondary, y'all. I don't know that I trust Christian Fulton. I don't know that Sean Murphy-Bunting can be a true number one guy. I love Roger McCreary in the slot, but they don't have horses in the secondary. I'm just saying. Miscommunication between Amani Hooker and Christian Fulton on the Cooper touchdown was bad. Again, I reiterate, I don't think Amari Cooper is as explosive as he used to be, but if you give him plays like that, he will make them. That was bad. That was bad. Fulton didn't have a good day. The defensive pass interference call on that 2nd and 26, I don't know that he would have even caught the ball. I don't know that he would have even caught the ball if there were the trajectory of it, and I froze it, screenshotted it, and just kind of stared at it for a minute, trying to, over and over just predict the trajectory of the ball. And to me, it looked like I don't even know if he would have caught the ball. This is completely unnecessary to basically tackle the guy at the point of the catch. That's an easy flag. Kept the Browns' drive going. Just something the Browns were able to do on offense, sustain drives, in part because the Titans kept doing dumb shit that hurt the team. And Cooper should have had a touchdown over Fulton, but the refs inexplicably called him out of bounds. If I were a Browns fan, I would have been furious at that, but I also probably would have known, like, at that point in the game, I didn't know it at the time, but rewatching it, the second quarter, I'm like, this game's over. This game's over. So maybe, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm watching this like, damn, we got them right where they want them, whatever, let them have that call. Oh, man, Fulton was completely on skates on that play. The penalties were terrible. The Titans were playing defense like they were scared to death of getting beat deep, and they just don't have the defensive back talent to go up against a scheme like that. I mean, forget the players for a second, but just the scheme, the way Kevin Stefanski has designed this offense, the way they get guys in space and make you tackle them in the open field. They don't have the defensive back talent to go blow for blow with an offense like that. I mentioned Sean Murphy-Bunting, Christian Fulton ×2, Roger McCreary all had penalties in the game. The broadcasters even noted, like, they're turning their backs to the quarterbacks. So, yeah, just keep making those throws. Just keep making those throws. And the Browns did. Wasn't just the secondary, though. Azeez Al-Shire got juked out of his shoes one-on-one for a touchdown to Jerome Ford. Again, alignments, personnel. Kevin Stefanski knew what he was doing. Just put him out wide, get the linebacker on him. I don't think Azeez Al-Shire, I keep mispronouncing his name. I don't mean to do that disrespectfully. Like, I'm trying. Azeez Al-Shire, I don't think he's particularly been good in coverage this season. And so you get a guy like Jerome Ford out there, you put a double move on the outside, he runs out, he's wide open. Great play design, understanding your matchups. Kevin Stefanski had a great day yesterday. Tackling. Mike Vrabel talked about it on his gimmick on Channel 2 with Mike Keith last week, wanting to create turnovers. There were opportunities there for Deshaun Watson to throw interceptions, to create turnovers. But to me, and this is something else that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about, the tackling. I mentioned earlier was so bad, but it felt like every play, guys were trying to punch the ball out instead of trying to secure the tackle. And it felt like the Browns players were continually picking up like 2 to 4 extra yards on every play after contact. And after a while, you just keep taking those hits, and you just like you gotta kind of get back to basics a little bit, right? Fundamentally, you got to start focusing on the tackles. Is the difference in the game is that both teams were trying to get around the defensive fronts, getting the ball in space, and the Browns defense, they were making the open field tackles on Tyjae Spears and Derrick Henry. The Titans were not. The Jerome Ford touchdown run, there were a couple of whiffed tackles because it looked like guys were lunging and punching for the ball. Maybe too much of a focus on creating turnovers. I don't know. I kept getting annoyed watching the broadcast live, like, hey, wrap a guy up and take him to the ground. Lay a big fucking hit on somebody. I get wanting to force turnovers, but you can't sacrifice the basic fundamentals of tackling to do it. An observation of mine. The pass rush, again, like we're talking we're talking like all aspects of the defense. Pretty inept yesterday. They couldn't finish on Watson. That's what she said. Dude was bouncing off Titans defenders. They couldn't close on sacks. The Browns were getting positive yardage on plays when Watson was dead to rights. And the Titans were trying, like they kind of playing tentatively. They would get to Watson, and it's like they didn't know what he was going to do, if he was going to juke them out of their cleats. So they just kind of hesitated and give him just a split second to either get away, complete a pass. The Titans were rushing for like the whole game with a few blitzes sprinkled in there. And guys were getting to him, but they just looked kind of scared. And you play that style of offense where you got a quarterback that can move around and extend the play, eventually you're going to tire the defense out. So again, the Titans kind of playing right into the hands of the Cleveland Browns. I thought this was an interesting nugget from Paul Kaharski. Deshaun Watson's 123.4 passer rating against the Titans was his best in 9 games with the Browns. He had one that was close to it last year, but his average with Cleveland before Sunday's game was 76.2. There you have it, a get-right game for Deshaun Watson. The Titans let him have it. Schematically, the short, quick stuff was just killing the Titans' defense all day. And Stefanski threw the kitchen sink at the Titans' defense on the opening drive. Kind of in the moment, I kind of thought, oh, this is like desperation here. There's a little bit of intimidation factor going. In hindsight, I think Stefanski knew, like, hey, if we get points early, we're going to be able to push the tempo in this game. We're going to be able to dictate the pace of this game. And we're going to have this team right where we want it. I also think he was sending guys in space to kind of see how the Titans would play it. Like, are the linebackers quick enough to get to the perimeter and bring our guys down? Are they going to pull the safeties up to bring these guys down? And if they do that, are there going to be opportunities down the field? Welp, let me tell you, folks. Correct on both fronts, if that was the case. In hindsight, like, of course, I don't know the intention of Kevin Stefanski and the Browns coaching staff, but in hindsight, it definitely looks like you're throwing a bunch of different formations and motions and personnel groupings and all that stuff at the Titans defense to kind of get a feel for what they're going to do and how they're going to respond. And from that drive, where I thought the Titans defense looked dominant, from that, he was really able to dial it up. I thought he was in his bag yesterday. And I don't know that the Titans could really get creative with rotating their coverages. Again, this is something that I want to key in on if I get the chance to watch the All-22, but I don't know that they could get as creative as they usually do with rotating their coverages because they couldn't send extra pressure much because of the way Stefanski designed this offense to clog up the field and spread things out down the field. They needed bodies in the secondary because they didn't have a lot of guys that could cover dudes one-on-one. And now, like I said earlier, like this is out there now for offensive coordinators to see. It's on the tape. See, like, hey, if we can kind of, get the ball in space, maybe get it around that Titans pass rush, like we can make plays down the field. And you have some good receiving cores coming up. Overall, I wrote a smart-ass comment down. I'm going to say something that's going to be smart-ass. I think it's funny. Maybe you don't think it's funny. But overall thoughts on the game, hey, congrats, Titans. Teams can't run up the middle on you. You got that. Let's hang the banner in Nissan Stadium. I thought the secondary was soft. I thought it was absolutely a problem yesterday. Your offense takes too long to develop, and that's a problem the way your offensive line is currently constructed. I think it's important. I saw Tyler Rowland of the Locked On Titans podcast kind of reminding people. I think it was Tyler. I feel like I always attribute quotes to people on this show, but I try. I do my best. Kind of reminding people like this wasn't going to be fixed in one draft class. But the way it's currently constructed, I don't know what you do about it. And what is particularly discouraging about this 1-2 start is that the Titans are relatively healthy. And I think we've seen Tannehill play a little bit shook. We've seen the offense slow to getting started. The offensive line, it's a work in progress at best. And the defense is giving up big plays and dumb penalties. The running game can't seem to get going. And the Titans just really aren't looking like a well-coached team right now. I mean, what they really look like is a team in transition with personnel built for different schemes, previous schemes. It's kind of, somewhere in between, do we really push to compete with what we have, and do we just make the transition and evaluate what we have for 2024? I talked about it before the season started. The team's going to get healthy, and this is a gritty, tough team. And that's the thing that's going to keep him in games is Mike Vrabel. But what happens when you can't blame the injuries and you lose that gritty toughness that keeps you in games? Because I didn't see too much of that yesterday. I don't know how you guys felt about it. And I don't mean to be so scathing. Like, I still think this can be a decent football team. But yesterday was pretty bad. And yesterday was bad enough that it was the first time that I sat there with a cocktail at the end of the night, just trying to process where I wanted to go with my work this week. And it was the first time that I really felt like, and what happens if they lose the thing that makes them great? How hard is that to get back? Are we going to see, the team bounce back and get right against the Bengals? Maybe. I think that sets the season on a different trajectory than if this thing just continues to bottom out. I don't know. I really don't expect the Titans to do much tinkering. I think they'll go with what they have. And I think when they're out of the race officially, they'll use that time to evaluate what they have for 2024. Because I just don't think the answers are there right now. And I think it is going to take another offseason when you do have a little more money. You do have a lot more money to spend in free agency. And you need another good draft class in addition to the 2023 draft class paying dividends. No more of these John Robinson 2020, 2021 draft classes. So that's where, it kind of feels like the Titans are heading. And before the season started, I kind of said the exact inverse of everything. It's like, well, this team can be good if it can stay healthy, if the offense works, if the offensive line is a little bit better, if the new additions on defense become a force. Like, if those things happen, this is going to be a good football team. And it feels like the exact opposite of everything I said is happening. So, like I said, I think this is a game that you just kind of want to flush as quickly as possible and get out of it. Tip of the cap to Kevin Stefanski and Jim Schwartz. Again, fantastic game plan, understanding their personnel, understanding the Titans' personnel and what they had and where to attack them. Great showing from them. The Cleveland Browns, the fans should be optimistic about this team because it's 2-1, and if your offense is not giving the ball to the Pittsburgh Steelers, maybe 3-0. I don't know. I'm open to the idea like this Browns team could be pretty good by the season's end. I don't know that I'm ready to say that right now, but it'll be interesting to see where this team goes from here. As for the Titans, I think if you're looking for silver linings aside from Chris Moore being complete MVP of this team, I think you look at the rest of the AFC South. The Jags don't look like what everybody thought they were going to be. If only somebody was saying that all summer long. The Texans are rebuilding. They've got a little bit of a spark, though. C.J. Stroud's looking pretty good so far, his rookie season. And the Colts are they're 2-1. They're on top of the division right now, but, are they – what do we really make of them right now? This is a dumpster fire of a division. I think my thing is if this Titans team can hang around until November, they might still have a shot to win this division and get into the playoffs. And like I've said all along, there's still plenty of football left to be played. There's still room for this team to get hot and turn it around. I'm not panicking yet. And it probably sounds like I'm out on this entire franchise and regime and personnel listening to this podcast. I just think it was a terrible game. I don't think the Titans had any answers for it, and I think the Browns coaching staff did a tremendous job of exploiting where the Titans were weak. It's a game you move on and you get to the next one. So if they can hang around till November, we'll see. And if they're out of the race by then, I think you're going to see the back half of the season looked at as a sort of evaluation period from this franchise to see what they have moving forward. I do think you've got to spend some time this season evaluating Willis and Levis to see what you have at quarterback. There's some young offensive line talent. I think you got to give them a chance. Some young receiving talent. You give them more of a chance. And this slew of undrafted defensive backs that made the 53-man roster. There's plenty of stuff to look at. But, I would say, hey, look at the bright side of that Jets game that I talked about early on. It was 2021. That was 2-2 for this team, and they went on to become the top seed in the AFC. Let's see how this thing plays out. But as for now, I feel like this is what the Titans are going to be on a week-to-week basis. You're going to have some losses that you're just scratching your head, but they do have, the potential to put an offensive output out there like we saw in the Chargers game. Just ride the roller coaster, guys. Just ride the roller coaster. That's going to do it for this episode of the Unofficial Titans podcast, my game reaction pod to yesterday's loss to the Cleveland Browns. Again, you can follow me on X at Stoney Keeley. Follow us on all major social media platforms at Sobros Network. I've got some stuff lined up for stacking the inbox this week. We are going to do another Unofficial Titans podcast this week, previewing the Cincinnati Bengals. And, you just find me out there on these internet streets, baby. I ain't too hard to find. Subscribe to the Unofficial Titans podcast on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify, wherever you take in your shows. Subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/Sobros Network. Until next time, you stay classy. And, hey, keep those chins up, Titans fans.